At the airport to pick up my husband, I froze as his female assistant fell into his arms. I immediately drove away, ignoring his calls, not answering his texts. Only when he completely lost contact with me did he truly begin to fall apart. The announcer's voice droned on over the speakers in the domestic arrivals hall of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, listing the flights that had just landed. I stood behind the welcome barrier, a phone in one hand, the other clutching my car key fob so tightly the metal edges dug into my palm. Damari's flight had landed over 20 minutes ago. By my calculations, he should be walking out any minute. We hadn't seen each other in nearly 2 months. Damari had been in Miami, overseeing the merger of a luxury hotel chain. The work had dragged on longer than expected, one meeting after another. Some days, he'd only managed to send me a single text close to midnight, saying he was exhausted and would call tomorrow. But his tomorrow never seemed to come. I'd been sad, I'd been angry, I'd lain alone in our 1,200-square-foot condo in Buckhead, watching the city lights flicker through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and wondered when our marriage had started to feel so cold. In the end, I always consoled myself with the thought that he was busy. A man building a career can't help but neglect his family sometimes. I just needed to be a little more understanding, a little more patient, and everything would go back to the way it was. Last night, Damari had sent a surprise text. "I'm coming home tomorrow. Come pick me up. I miss you. Miss your braised short ribs." I read and reread that message several times. Though it was just a few short words, the corners of my lips turned up unconsciously. I replied immediately, "Of course, I'll be there." This morning, I had gone to the market and bought the meatiest cut of short ribs, the kind he loved. I even stopped by the store for a bottle of good red wine. I planned for us to have a wonderful dinner tonight. Phones off, no work talk, just us, maybe rewatching the old movie we saw on our first date. We had been married for 7 years. 7 years wasn't long in the grand scheme of a lifetime, but it was long enough for one person to become an ingrained habit in the others. I knew Damari didn't drink coffee after 3 p.m. because it would keep him up. I knew he hated green onions, couldn't stand overly strong perfume, and often got stomach aches when he skipped meals. I always made sure his suitcase was packed with painkillers, digestive aids, and a spare dress shirt. And he once knew that I was afraid of thunder, loved hydrangeas, and always needed a cup of chamomile tea before bed. I just didn't know if he remembered those things anymore. My phone vibrated. He was off the plane and getting his luggage. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the exit gate. A stream of people began to emerge from behind the glass doors. People pushing luggage carts, people holding flowers, people talking on the phone as they walked. A child shouted and ran into their father's arms. An elderly couple hugged in the middle of the crowd, making me smile. I stood on my toes, peering inside, and then I saw Damari. He wore a crisp white shirt under a dark blue blazer, pulling a gray suitcase with one hand. 2 months away had made him a little thinner. His already sharp features were more defined, his hair cut neatly. Even in a crowd, he stood out with his tall frame and the confident air of a man used to being in charge. My heart beat faster. I was about to raise my hand when the smile on my lips froze. Behind Damari, there was a woman. She wore a form-fitting beige dress under a light gray trench coat. Her long hair was loosely styled and pulled back. On her feet were a pair of slender high heels, each step graceful and fluid. I recognized her. Amara, my husband's executive assistant. Amara had joined the company a little over a year ago. I'd met her at the end-of-year party. She had approached me, calling me ma'am and gushing about how Damari always talked about my cooking. She was 6 years younger than me, had a master's degree in business administration, and was highly regarded by Damari. He had once said Amara was smart, sophisticated, and responsible. He only needed to say one thing and she would understand exactly what he meant. I didn't think much of it at the time. It's normal for a leader to have a capable assistant, but right now, the distance between them was close enough to make me uncomfortable. Amara pulled a small, wine-red suitcase, walking closely behind Damari. Occasionally, she would lean in and say something. Damari didn't turn around, but the corner of his mouth twitched up, clearly listening intently. He saw me, his eyes lighting up for a moment, and he quickened his pace. I stood still, trying to ignore the unease spreading through me. Damari was just a few steps away. Just then, Amara let out a small cry. She stumbled as if her ankle had twisted, her whole body pitching forward. Damari immediately turned, dropping his suitcase handle and opening his arms to catch her. Amara fell straight into my husband's embrace. It all happened so fast, but in my eyes, every movement was terrifyingly slow. Amara's hands gripped Damari's shoulders, her face pressed against his chest. Damari held her with one hand on her waist and the other on her back, patting it gently twice. He leaned down, his mouth close to her ear. "Are you hurt?" Amara looked up, her eyes glistening. "I'm fine. My legs are probably just a little stiff from the flight." "Be careful," Damari said, still not letting her go. I could hear my own heart pounding in my chest. Around me, people were still laughing and talking. Suitcases rolled across the floor, the announcer's voice echoed, but all the sounds seemed to be pushed far away. All I saw was my husband's hand on another woman's waist. I saw the look in Amara's eyes as she gazed up at him. It wasn't the look of an employee towards her boss. It was the look of a woman looking at the man she believed she had a right to lean on. A moment later, Amara slowly stepped out of Damari's embrace. Her cheeks were flushed, her lips curved into a demure smile. When she saw me, she paused artfully, then nodded. "Hi, Imani. You're here to pick up Damari." I didn't answer. Damari pulled his suitcase over to me, his tone as natural as if nothing had happened. "Have you been waiting long?" I looked straight into his eyes. There was no embarrassment, no guilt. He didn't even think he needed to explain. That attitude chilled me more than the embrace itself. Damari reached out to take my hand. I took a step back. His hand stopped in midair. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," I heard my own voice say, surprisingly calm. "Let's go." I turned and walked towards the parking garage. Behind me, the sound of rolling suitcase wheels and clicking high heels intertwined. Damari called my name once, but I didn't stop. At the black sedan parked at the end of the row, I opened the driver's side door. Damari put the suitcase in the trunk and got into the passenger seat, as was his habit. Amara stood outside, hands clasped in front of her, looking meek and patient. Damari turned to me. "Amara lives in Midtown. It's on the way, let's give her a ride." I looked at him. The drive from the airport to Buckhead didn't go through Midtown at all, but what hurt wasn't the detour. He had just returned after 2 months away from his wife, and the first thing he thought of wasn't going home with me, but arranging a ride for his female assistant in our car. Amara opened the back door and slid in gracefully. "Thank you, Imani. Sorry for the trouble." A light, floral scent filled the car. Damari turned to her. "Put on your seatbelt." Amara replied obediently. "Yes, sir." I put the key in the ignition and started the car. The engine roared to life, and then I turned it off again. Damari turned to look at me. "What's the matter?" I didn't answer. I got out of the car, opened the trunk, and pulled his suitcase out onto the pavement. Then I opened the passenger door. "Get out." Damari was stunned. "What did you say?" I looked him straight in the eye. I said, "Get out of the car." His face darkened instantly. "Imani, don't be ridiculous." I closed the passenger door, walked to the back, and opened the door where Amara was sitting. She looked at me with a bewildered expression. "Imani?" "You too, get out." Amara bit her lip, her eyes immediately turning red as if she were the one who had been wronged. Damari got out, his voice now laced with anger. "What the hell are you doing? If there's a problem, we'll talk about it at home. Don't make a scene in the middle of the airport." Make a scene? I looked at the man I had lived with for 7 years and suddenly found him terrifyingly unfamiliar. "You hold another woman in front of me, then ask me to drive her home. And now you're accusing me of making a scene?" Amara quickly chimed in. "You misunderstood, Imani. I just tripped." Damari caught me out of reflex. I turned to her. "I wasn't talking to you." Damari frowned. "Do you have to be so rude?" Amara worked with me for 2 months straight. She just got off a long flight and almost fell. What's wrong with me helping her? I didn't answer. I got back into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and started the engine. Damari tapped on the window. "Imani, open the door." I stared straight ahead. "Imani, don't take this too far." I pressed the accelerator. The car rolled slowly out of the parking spot. In the rearview mirror, I saw Damari standing amidst the rows of cars, his suitcase beside him, and Amara with a look of pure victimhood on her face. He didn't run after me. He just stood there, watching my car drive away. As soon as I merged onto the highway, my phone started ringing. Damari's name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. He called a second time, then a third. Texts started pouring in. "Come back here right now." What is the meaning of this? Amara is just my assistant. What are you thinking? Let's go home and talk. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The car sped into the thick of Atlanta's late afternoon traffic. The setting sun, a fiery red orb, sank behind the high rises, painting the sky in a breathtakingly beautiful hue. For 2 months, I had waited for this day. I thought tonight would be a reunion dinner. I had bought his favorite food, chosen the wine he usually drank, and put fresh sheets on the bed. But in just a few minutes at the airport, all my anticipation had turned into a cold, empty void. The phone kept vibrating relentlessly. I didn't pick up. I didn't reply to a single message. For the first time in 7 years of marriage, I didn't want to explain, didn't want to compromise, and I no longer wanted to be the understanding wife. I just wanted to know one thing. If I disappeared from Damari's life, would he worry because he was truly afraid of losing me? Or would he just be angry that the person who always waited for him was no longer obediently standing in her place? I drove away from the airport with no destination in mind. The stream of cars on I-85 was a long ribbon of red taillights. The horns, the engine noises, and the brightly lit billboards along the road made my head spin even more. The phone on the passenger seat continued to vibrate. I didn't need to look to know who was calling. Damari had never called me this much. On his business trips, I could text him from morning till night and only get a single reply. Yet, in less than half an hour, he had called nearly 10 times. He was probably furious. He probably didn't understand why his always gentle wife, who always protected his image, would leave him and his female assistant in a parking garage. I switched the phone to silent and drove straight towards Piedmont Park. Night had fallen completely. The buildings on either side of the parkway lit up like giant crystal blocks. The surface of Lake Claramere reflected thousands of twinkling lights, reminding me of the early years when we first met. Back then, Damari had nothing. He was just a new sales associate, driving a beat-up Honda Civic that often broke down. I was an accountant for a furniture company. My salary wasn't high, but it was stable. We used to sit by the river, sharing a slice of pizza, splitting a coffee, and talking about a future home and children who hadn't yet arrived. Damari once held my hand tightly and promised, "Later, no matter how busy I get, I'll always come home for dinner with you." I believed him then. I believed him so much that for the past 7 years, I had willingly shrunk my own life to be the support system for his. When his company started to take off, I quit my job because he said he needed someone to take care of the family. My mother-in-law also said that a man doing big things needs a stable home. So I agreed. I gave up a job I loved, gave up gatherings with friends, even gave up plans for further studies, all so I could wait for him every night with a hot meal. But gradually, he started coming home later. The meals were reheated twice, 3 times, and then finally thrown away. Our conversations dwindled to utility bills, schedules for visiting our parents, and the fact that the air conditioner needed fixing. I used to think that was the natural course of marriage. Romance becomes responsibility. Passion fades into normalcy. As long as he wasn't cheating, as long as he still came home, a life like that wasn't so bad. But today, watching Amara in his arms, I understood that there are boundaries that, even if not crossed physically, have already been crossed in the heart. I parked the car in a lot near the park, the phone still lighting up intermittently. I picked it up, 23 missed calls, over 30 text messages. "Where are you? Come back and pick us up." Amara and I got a taxi. Don't overthink things. What happened at the airport was just an accident. I don't understand why you're reacting like this. You're really embarrassing me. I stopped at that last line. You're really embarrassing me. Not I hurt you. Not I let another woman embrace me right in front of my wife. The thing he cared about most was still his own image. I let out a soft laugh, but my eyes stung. New messages kept appearing. "I'm home, you should come home too. We need to talk." I put the phone down, opened the door, and stepped out. The wind from the park carried a cool, damp mist. I walked along the stone path, looking at the couples sitting together. A young man was kneeling to tie his girlfriend's shoelace. A middle-aged woman draped a jacket over her husband's shoulders. A small family pushed a stroller, walking slowly by. These ordinary scenes made my chest ache. I didn't envy them. I just remembered that I, too, once had a man who found joy in taking care of me. When did he become a man who found my feelings to be an inconvenience? I sat down on a stone bench near the water. The phone rang again. This time I picked it up but still didn't answer. Damari's name was on the screen. Below it, the wedding photo I had set as his contact picture years ago. In the picture, my smile was radiant. Damari was looking down at me, his eyes full of tenderness. I stared at the photo for a long time until the call automatically disconnected. A voicemail arrived. I hesitated for a few seconds before playing it. "Imani, stop being childish. I'm exhausted from the flight. Amara's foot is hurt. You leaving like that made things very awkward. I know you're upset, but at least you should hear my explanation. His voice sounded tired and annoyed. Suddenly, I didn't want to cry anymore. He still thought I was being childish. He still thought I should come back because he was tired. It seemed that in this marriage, only his exhaustion was worthy of attention. I turned off the screen. 8 p.m. I was still sitting there. 9 p.m. The phone battery was down to 20%. 10 p.m. Damari's messages started to change. He apologized for raising his voice. He said he had no relationship with Amara. He said the past 2 months had been incredibly stressful, and Amara was just a work support. He even said she was blaming herself for causing a misunderstanding between us. I laughed when I read that. In the story he told, Amara was innocent, he was misunderstood, and I was the one who ruined everything. 10:30 p.m., the phone had only 5% battery left. Damari's last message appeared. I'm waiting for you at home. I looked at those words, then started the car. I wanted to go home too, not to make up. I needed to look that man in the eye and hear just how far his explanations could go. When I opened the door to our condo, it was nearly 11 p.m. The living room lights were on. Damari was sitting on the sofa, his blazer tossed to one side, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone. An ashtray on the table was filled with cigarette butts. He had quit smoking over 3 years ago. Hearing the door, he stood up immediately. Where have you been? I didn't answer, dropped my purse on the floor, and walked straight to the bedroom. Damari followed close behind. Do you know how many times I called you? I opened the closet and pulled out a large suitcase from the bottom. His expression changed. What are you doing? I started taking clothes from the closet and packing them, one by one. Damari stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. Imani, stop. Let's talk. I pulled my hand away. What do you want to talk about? He looked at me, his voice slowing down. What happened at the airport was a misunderstanding. Amara tripped, and I caught her on reflex. I couldn't just watch her fall. Does catching someone require holding their waist for that long? He faltered. She wasn't steady on her feet yet. And leaning in close to her ear? You were just asking if she was hurt? I looked at the man in front of me. His answers were smooth, but his eyes held a look of annoyance, as if I were interrogating him about a non-existent crime. Damari sighed. You're reading too much into it. Amara is my assistant. For the past 2 months, she's worked almost non-stop to help get this deal done. It's normal for me to show some concern. What about my feelings? He frowned. I already said I was sorry. What are you sorry for? For making me upset? Or because you realize you crossed a line? The room fell silent. Damari turned his face away. In that moment, I had my answer. He didn't think he was wrong. He was just sorry that my reaction was causing him trouble. I continued packing. Damari suddenly snatched a shirt from my hand. You're going to leave home over a small thing like this? I looked at him. To you, this is a small thing? It is a small thing. You're the one making it a big deal. I stood there for a few seconds, then zipped the suitcase shut. Fine. If you think it's a small thing, then we have nothing more to talk about. I pulled the suitcase toward the door. Damari blocked my way. Where do you think you're going? To a friend's house. No, you're not. I looked up. By what right do you forbid me? I'm your husband. I looked at him for a long time, then replied. But tonight, you haven't acted like one. Damari's face hardened. I squeezed past him. From behind, he called my name, his voice starting to sound panicked. Imani, if you walk out that door today, things won't be simple anymore. My hand paused on the doorknob, but I didn't turn back. Things stopped being simple the moment you held her. I opened the door and walked out. Just before the elevator doors closed, I heard the sound of something shattering inside the condo. I didn't go back to check. The suitcase in my hand was heavy, but my heart felt terrifyingly empty. That night, I left the house I once called home, not knowing that the embrace at the airport was just the first layer of a much larger secret. I drove out of the underground garage as the clock passed 11 p.m. Atlanta's lights were still bright, but the streets were emptier. The suitcase sat on the back seat. Every time the car went over a bump, it would gently hit the door, making a dry, hollow sound. I didn't know where I could go. A hotel was the simplest choice, but I didn't want to be alone in a strange room. I was afraid that when all the sounds died down, the images from the airport would reappear even more clearly. After a few minutes of hesitation, I called Nia. She was my best friend from college. After I got married, we didn't see each other as often, but whenever something happened, she was still the first person I thought of. The phone only rang twice. Hello? Imani? Nia's voice was still thick with sleep. I was silent for a few seconds before I could speak. Can I come over to your place for a night? She was instantly wide awake. Where are you? On the road. What happened? I'll tell you later. Nia didn't ask any more questions. Come on over. I'll leave the door unlocked. Nia's apartment was in an older complex in Grant Park. When I pulled my suitcase out of the elevator, she was standing at her door in her pajamas, hair in a messy bun, wearing mismatched slippers. The moment she saw me, the smile on her face vanished. What happened to you? Before I could answer, Nia pulled me inside and closed the door. Her apartment wasn't large, but it was warm and cozy. On the dining table was a half-finished glass of milk. The yellow lamp next to the sofa cast a soft, gentle light, a stark contrast to the cold white lights of the home I had just left. Nia poured me a glass of warm water and sat down across from me. Now, tell me everything. I held the glass in my hands, the warmth seeping into my palms, but my body was still cold. I told her everything, from waiting at the airport, seeing Amara behind Damari, to her falling into his arms. I told her about his hand on her waist, about him telling me to give her a ride, and about the words that made me unable to bear it any longer. It's a small thing. When Nia heard that, she slammed her hand on the table. A small thing? The hell it was. Holding his assistant like that in front of his wife, and he calls it a small thing? Maybe she really did trip, I said, though I didn't understand why I was still trying to find excuses for them. Nia stared at me. Are you still defending him? I'm not. Then stop lying to yourself. Maybe catching her was a reflex, but holding her waist, patting her back, whispering in her ear, and letting her stay in his arms for that long is not a reflex anymore. I looked down at the rippling water in my glass. What hurts the most isn't the hug. Nia waited quietly. It's his attitude. He didn't think he needed to explain. He looked at me as if I was the one who did something wrong. He cared if Amara's foot hurt, but he never once asked how I felt. As I spoke, a lump formed in my throat. I had tried to stay calm all evening. But sitting in front of someone who was truly listening, that strong facade began to crack. Nia moved to sit next to me and put an arm around my shoulder. If you want to cry, just cry. I shook my head. I can't. Then just sit here. You don't have to say anything. We sat together for a long time. Outside the window, the wind rustled through the leaves. The city had moved on to a new day. But in my heart, I was still stuck in the moment Amara fell into my husband's arms. After a while, Nia asked softly, Do you think Damari is having an affair? I didn't answer right away. I used to think cheating involved secret texts, nights not coming home, or being caught in a hotel room. But the situation between Damari and Amara seemed to be in a gray area. They might not have done anything that crossed the final line, but they understood each other at work. They traveled together, ate together, and went through pressures that Damari never shared with me. Amara knew what he needed before he said it, while I only knew what he liked to eat when he came home. I don't know, I replied. But I know he has a place for her in his heart. A place big enough for him to think caring for her is natural, and my discomfort is unreasonable. Nia squeezed my shoulder gently. So what are you going to do? I don't know yet. Do you want a divorce? Those two words sent a sharp pain through my heart. Divorce? I had thought about it in the elevator, on the drive here, and while sitting by the river. But hearing it spoken aloud, it still felt like a knife cutting straight through 7 years of my life. It wasn't as simple as signing a piece of paper. We had a home together, joint savings, 2 sets of parents, and countless intertwined relationships. Every corner of our condo held traces of both of us. More importantly, I still loved him. That's what made me feel so pathetic. I haven't decided, I said. I just know I don't want to see him right now. Nia nodded. Then stay here as long as you need. That night, she gave me her bedroom and slept on the sofa. I protested, but Nia was adamant. I lay on the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone had died. For the first time in years, I was completely cut off from Damari. No calls, no texts, no more explanations. But the silence didn't bring me peace. I wondered what he was doing now. Was he worried? Or was he still angry that I had embarrassed him? Did he call Amara to comfort her? Was he telling her that I was just having a tantrum and would come back on my own in a few days? In the past, whenever we argued, I was always the one to give in. I was afraid of the Cold War, afraid of the silent house, afraid of a small argument turning into a major crack in our relationship. So, whether I was right or wrong, I was usually the one to cook his favorite meal, place a cup of tea in front of him, and pretend everything was over. Perhaps it was I who had taught Damari that he never had to pay a price for hurting me. I finally drifted off to sleep near dawn. When I woke up, the smell of fried eggs and toast filled the apartment. I walked out to the kitchen. Nia was at the stove, cooking and taking a work call. Seeing me, she pointed to a charger on the table. "I charged your phone for you, but brace yourself. It started vibrating like crazy the second it turned on." I picked up the phone. 1 missed calls and 46 text messages from Damari. 2 calls from my mother-in-law, and a friend request on social media from Amara. The attached message read, "Imani, I'm sorry, you've misunderstood. Please give me a chance to explain." I stared at the words for a long time, then I hit decline. I didn't need her explanation. What I needed was a husband who knew how to keep his distance before his wife had to say something. Just as I put the phone down, the screen lit up again. Damari was calling. Nia, standing by the stove, looked at me without urging or stopping me. I looked at the familiar name flashing on the screen. Finally, I silenced the ringer and placed the phone face down on the table. I still didn't know where this marriage was headed, but this time, I wouldn't go back just because he called. I stayed at Nia's for 3 days. During those 3 days, Damari called me no less than 50 times. His texts were a roller coaster of emotions, explaining, apologizing, blaming, then shifting to worry. On the first day, he was still adamant that I had misunderstood. On the second day, he started to admit he was wrong for not considering my feelings. By the third day, he was just asking one question. "Where are you?" I read everything but replied to nothing. It wasn't that I wanted to torture him with silence. I was just afraid that if I heard his voice, my soft heart would make me go back too soon, before I understood what had really happened. On the morning of the third day, Nia left for work early. I was alone in the apartment, sitting by the window, watching the traffic below. Suddenly, a message from Marcus popped up. He was a mutual friend of mine and Damari's, a lawyer specializing in marriage and assets. "Are you free this weekend? I wanted to invite you and Damari out to dinner." I stared at the message for a long time, not knowing if it was just a casual invitation or if Damari had asked him to probe. Before I could reply, Nia called. "Imani, I just ran into Marcus in the lobby of my office building." I was silent. He said Damari called him, asking about divorce procedures. The hand holding my water glass tightened. "He wants a divorce?" "No." Marcus said Damari was very agitated, insisting he didn't want a divorce. He asked if one party walks out, is there a way to legally compel them to come back and talk? I let out a bitter laugh. That was Damari. He was used to solving every problem with strategies, clauses, and plans. Even with his marriage on the brink of collapse, the first thing he thought of was how to control the situation. Nia hesitated. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Do you still love him?" I looked down at my hand. The wedding ring was still on my finger. In 7 years, I had never taken it off, not even to wash dishes or sleep. "I do," I replied. "But love doesn't mean I can pretend I was never hurt." Nia sighed. "I'm just afraid you'll go back, and everything will go back to the way it was." I'm afraid of that too. That was what made me hesitate the most. If I went back now, Damari might apologize, buy flowers, and promise to keep his distance from Amara. But a few months later, when things settled down, would he go back to thinking I overreacted? I didn't want an apology that was just meant to put me back in my place. That afternoon, I packed my clothes. When Nia came home and saw the suitcase in the middle of the living room, she was surprised. "Are you going back to Damari?" "No, I'm going to my parents' house." She let out a sigh of relief. "I thought you were giving up." I hugged Nia. "Thank you. Don't be so formal. My door is always open whenever you want to come back." I drove to the small house in Decatur where my parents had lived for over 20 years. Before I got married, I never thought I would return here with a suitcase and a fractured marriage. My mother was watering the flower pots in the front yard. As soon as she saw my car, she came out happily, but when she saw the suitcase in the trunk, her expression immediately changed. "Where are you going with so many things?" "I'm staying with you and Dad for a few days." My mother looked deep into my eyes. "Did you argue with Damari?" I didn't answer. She took the bag from my hand and said quietly, "Couples are bound to have disagreements. If there's a problem, sit down and talk about it. Don't just leave home whenever you're angry." I knew my mother wasn't blaming me. She was just afraid her daughter's marriage would fall apart. but her words still exhausted me. I didn't leave home. I just need a place to calm down. Does Damari know you're here? No. My mother was about to say more, but my father came out from the house. He looked at the suitcase, at my face, then turned to my mother. Let her come inside first. We can talk later. My father helped me pull the suitcase into my old room. The room was almost exactly as I had left it years ago. The bookshelf was covered in a thin layer of dust. On the desk was still my college graduation photo. The light blue curtains were old but clean. My mother changed the sheets every month, even though I rarely stayed over. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling like I had returned to a place that had been forgotten in my own life. That evening, my mother cooked all my favorite dishes. During dinner, she tried to ask questions several times but was stopped by my father's gaze. After dinner, I sat next to my father watching the news. Neither of us said anything. After a long while, my father finally spoke. If you're not happy, just stay here. I turned to him. He was still looking at the screen. Your room has never been considered an empty room to us. Just that one sentence made all my defenses crumble. My tears fell before I could stop them. I hadn't cried when I saw my husband holding another woman. I hadn't cried when he said I was overreacting. I hadn't cried when I dragged my suitcase out of our home. But before my father's simple words, I cried like a child. My father didn't ask what Damari had done. He just placed his rough hand on mine. You're a grown woman now. I can't make decisions for you. But whether you choose to go back or move on, don't let yourself live in fear. I wiped my tears. I'm afraid of making the wrong decision. No one knows which decision is the right one. As long as you can look back later and know you didn't betray yourself, that's what matters. That night, I lay in my childhood room, staring at the familiar ceiling. My phone lit up again. Damari was calling. I didn't answer, but I didn't turn it off either. I watched his name on the screen until the call disconnected. Immediately after, a text message arrived. I know you're at your parents' house. I'm coming to pick you up tomorrow. I sat up. I had never told him where I was. That meant he had either asked everyone or was secretly tracking my car's location. A sense of unease crept in. I replied with my first message in 3 days. Don't come. Damari called back instantly. This time, I answered. His voice was hoarse. You finally decided to talk to me. How did you know where I was? He was silent for a few seconds. I just wanted to know you were safe. I asked again. How did you know? The car has a tracking app. The account is still logged in on my phone. I closed my eyes. You're tracking me. I was just worried about you. Worry doesn't give you the right to track me. Imani, we're husband and wife. Exactly. Because we're husband and wife, you should respect my boundaries. The other end of the line was silent. After a moment, Damari lowered his voice. I'll come over tomorrow. We'll talk in front of your parents. No. You can't keep avoiding me forever. I'm not avoiding you. I'm avoiding a conversation where you still think you have the right to decide everything. Imani. I cut him off. If you come here without my permission, I won't see you. I hung up, my hand still shaking. Less than a minute later, another message appeared. It wasn't from Damari. It was Amara's second friend request. This time, she wrote only one sentence. You should know the truth about the 2 months in Miami. I stared at the words, a chill running down my spine. I stared at Amara's friend request for a long time but didn't click accept. You should know the truth about the 2 months in Miami. The short sentence was enough to conjure a series of terrifying images in my mind. How long had they been together? Where had they had private dinners? Had Damari gone into her room on the nights he told me he had to work late? Was the embrace at the airport the first time, or just the first time I had seen it with my own eyes? I wanted to know the truth, but I also understood that Amara didn't send that message out of kindness. She wanted to unnerve me, to pull me into a conversation where she held all the power. I took a screenshot and hit decline. If there was really something she needed to say, she would find another way. If she just wanted to provoke me, I couldn't let her see that I was scared. The next morning, my father woke up early to tend to his garden. My mother suggested I go to the market with her, saying that staying at home would only make me overthink. I changed into some simple clothes and went with her to the nearby farmer's market. My mother didn't mention Damari. She just asked if I wanted fried catfish or pork chops, carefully selecting each bundle of greens as if it were the most important thing in the world. Watching my mother's slightly stooped back amidst the bustling market, I suddenly felt a pang of guilt. Since I got married, I had always said I was busy taking care of my own family. I hadn't realized that while I was waiting for Damari to come home, my parents were waiting for me in the same way. I was helping my mother choose a bunch of collard greens when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a second, then answered, "May I speak with Imani Washington?" The man's voice on the other end was calm and professional. "This is she. My name is Philip Tran, an attorney with the firm of Min and Associates. I am currently representing Miss Amara Jones." My hand froze. I put the greens down and stepped away from the noisy stall. "Why are you calling me?" "It's regarding the information you posted on social media this morning. The content shows signs of defamation, fabrication of a romantic relationship, and has caused serious harm to my client." I was stunned. I didn't post anything. The lawyer maintained his calm tone. "The post was made from an account named Sunless Sky. Through public information, we have determined that this account belongs to you. My client requests that you remove the post within 24 hours, issue a public apology, and cease all further attacks. If not, we will proceed with necessary legal action." I felt the blood drain from my face. The account, Sunless Sky, was indeed mine. I had created it in college to write down trivial thoughts. After getting married, I had almost completely stopped using it. I hadn't logged into that account in over 2 years. "Are you sure the post was from my account?" "We have taken complete screenshots. The post appeared at 9:17 this morning and has already been shared over 4,000 times. The content describes Miss Jones as a homewrecker, involved in an illicit affair with a company executive, and using business trips to seduce a married man." I had to lean against a nearby wall to steady myself. I had never written those things. "Then you should check your account." However, from a legal standpoint, the account owner is still responsible for its content. "I will follow up later." I hung up and immediately opened the social media app. The old account still had the password saved automatically. When my profile page appeared, I could barely breathe. A long post was pinned to the top. The title was written in sensational terms, recounting the airport scene from my perspective. But following that were a series of details I had never known, nor witnessed. The post claimed Damari and Amara had been seeing each other for over a year. It said they frequently stayed in the same hotel on business trips, that Amara used my husband's money to buy designer bags, jewelry, and rent a luxury apartment. It claimed they were secretly transferring our marital assets. Everything was written in the first person, as if I myself were crying and accusing my husband and his assistant in front of thousands of people. The comment section was chaotic. Some people cursed Amara for her shamelessness. Others called Damari a traitor. Someone posted a picture of his company building, demanding the leadership to respond. A few had even found Amara's personal profile and left vicious insults. I was shaking so much I almost dropped my phone. My mother came out of the market, looking at me with concern. "What's wrong, honey?" "I have to handle something." "Mom, you go ahead and finish shopping." My mother didn't believe me, but nodded anyway. I walked to a quieter corner and opened the login history. At 9:08 this morning, a strange device had accessed my account from an IP address in Atlanta. The device was a new, dark green smartphone. I didn't own a phone like that. Damari had a black one. But in a photo from the company's year-end party I had seen, Amara was holding that exact dark green phone. I screenshotted the entire login history, the post, and the comments, then changed my password. After that, I called Amara directly. The phone only rang twice before she picked up, her voice soft. "Hello, Imani? You logged into my account, didn't you?" There was a 2-second silence on the other end. Then, her gentle voice vanished. "You figured it out faster than I thought." I gripped the phone tightly. "What do you want?" "I'm just helping you say the things you don't dare to say." "I didn't write those words." "But you thought them, didn't you? You saw me in Damari's arms, you hated me, you left home and ignored his calls. Aren't you just trying to force him to choose? You're breaking the law." Amara laughed. It was a soft laugh, but it sent a chill down my spine. "Can you prove it? The post is from your account. Everyone knows you just had a fight with your husband out of jealousy. If this goes to the authorities, who do you think they'll believe?" I clenched my jaw. "You're doing this to force me into a divorce." "Finally, you understand." Her voice became frighteningly calm. "You sign the papers, leave Damari, and never show your face to us again. In return, I'll announce that your account was hacked by a malicious third party. You'll keep your dignity. And if I don't agree?" 3 days, she said slowly. "I'll give you 3 days to think about it. If you haven't made a decision after 3 days, the lawsuit will be filed. Then you won't just lose your husband. You could lose your reputation, your relationships, and your peaceful life." The call ended. I stood silently on the sunlit street, my hands and feet ice cold. It was only then that I understood the embrace at the airport was never an accident. It was a declaration of war. And Amara believed I had no weapons to fight back. After the call ended, I stood on the sidewalk for a long time. The flow of people passed before my eyes, a chaotic mix of sounds, motorbikes, vendors, chatter from the market behind me. I heard everything but couldn't focus on anything. 3 days. Amara had given me 3 days to walk out of my own marriage. She had planned this meticulously. From deliberately falling into Damari's arms at the airport, to hacking my account, posting slanderous content, and then hiring a lawyer to apply pressure every step, was designed to frame me as a jealous, irrational wife. If I reacted publicly with anger, she would become the victim. If I stayed silent, the post would continue to spread. If I divorced, she would achieve her goal. If I didn't divorce, she would sue me using the very evidence she had fabricated. I suddenly understood why Amara was so calm. She believed she had cut off all my escape routes. My mother came out of the market, carrying 2 bags of groceries. Seeing me standing motionless, she hurried over. "Are you not feeling well? You look so pale." I took the bags from her, trying to keep my voice normal. "Just a bit of a headache." "Let's go home, Mom." On the way back, I was silent. My mother glanced at me several times but didn't ask. Perhaps she knew I wasn't ready. As soon as we got home, I went straight to my room, locked the door, and put my phone on the desk. I opened the post again, screenshotting every part of the content, every share, every threatening comment. Then I saved the login history, the device's IP address, and the access time. I didn't know if any of it would be enough, but I knew I couldn't delete any trace of it. I called Marcus. He answered quickly. "Imani, I was just about to call you." "Marcus, I need your help." My voice made him immediately serious. "What's wrong?" I recounted the entire incident, from the lawyer's call to Amara's confession. Marcus was silent for a moment, then asked, "Did you record the call?" My heart sank. "No, I was too shocked." "Did she admit it in a text?" "No, she only spoke over the phone." Marcus took a slow breath. "Okay, don't contact her again without being prepared. First thing, save all the data. Don't delete the post yet, and absolutely do not post any emotional explanations." "But the post is spreading." "I understand. You can temporarily hide it if the platform allows, but you must back everything up first. I'll contact a cybersecurity specialist to check the login device. You should also report the hacking of your account. Can we prove it was her? If there are technical traces, possibly. But you need to stay calm. The person behind this is waiting for you to lose control." I clenched my fists. "I know." Marcus hesitated, then said, "There's one more thing. Damari called me this morning. He knows about the post." My chest felt heavy. "What did he say?" "He insisted you weren't the one who wrote it. But he also said Amara is panicking because she's being threatened online." I let out a bitter laugh. "She's panicking?" "Imani, I'm just telling you what he said. He wants me to mediate a meeting between you two." Before I could answer, Damari called. His name flashed on the screen as if he had overheard our conversation. I told Marcus, "Hold on a second." I put Marcus on hold, opened the voice recorder app on my tablet, and then answered Damari's call. "Hello?" His voice was urgent. "Imani, have you seen the post?" "I have." "I know you didn't post it. I'm having the tech department look into it." "Don't worry, I'll handle it." I looked at the recording timer on the tablet. "Who told you about the post?" "Amara," he answered after a slight pause. "She called me this morning. She was crying, saying someone had found her phone number and address." "Have you seen her?" The other end was silent for a few seconds. Then he replied, "Yes." "Where?" "At the office." I closed my eyes. "She cried in front of you." "Imani, now is not the time to be jealous. She's being attacked by thousands of people. And what about me?" My voice was so calm it sounded cold even to me. "My account was hacked. Words I never said are being spread under my name. Her lawyer just called and threatened to sue me. Did you even ask if I was scared?" Damari faltered. "I'm calling to tell you I believe you. But the first person you met with was her. She came to your office, and you immediately comforted her. I can't just ignore an employee who is in hysterics." I laughed dryly. "An employee? Imani, don't bring the airport into this." "I'm not bringing anything into this. You're the one repeating what happened at the airport. Every time Amara acts weak, you rush to protect her. But when I'm in pain, you tell me not to overreact." He was silent. I looked at the ring on my finger. "Damari, on our wedding day, you said that no matter what happened, you would always be on my side." Do you remember that? I remember. So whose side are you on now? A long silence followed. I could hear his heavy breathing. Imani, I don't want to take sides. I just want to find out the truth. That answer chilled my heart. He didn't choose me. Even when I was being impersonated and threatened, he still wanted to stand in the middle. I said slowly, Amara just called me. Damari immediately asked, what did she say? She admitted she posted it from my account. She wants me to divorce you and leave the city. That's impossible, he replied almost instantly. I gripped the phone tighter. You don't believe me. I didn't say that, but Amara has no reason to do something like that. And I have a reason to make this up? I just want proof. I looked at the recording running on the tablet screen. Fine. I'll get you proof. Imani, don't do anything reckless on your own. Let me handle it. No need, I replied. This time, I'll protect myself. I hung up and went back to my call with Marcus. He had heard part of the conversation because I had put it on speaker. Marcus said only one thing. From now on, don't trust anyone's words alone. That afternoon, he sent me the address of a cybersecurity expert named Jamal. I made an appointment to see him the next morning. I didn't know how much evidence I could find. But Damari had just made me understand one thing. In this battle, I couldn't wait for my husband to choose my side. I had to become my own protector. The next morning, I met Jamal in a small office in a nondescript building. The office was on the third floor of an old building, with no large sign outside, just a small plaque that read Data Security Consulting. The moment I walked through the door, I recognized the man behind the desk. Jamal and I had gone to the same college. We weren't in the same classes, but we had been in the same volunteer club. After graduation, he had gone to work in Singapore in cybersecurity. I had heard from friends that he had returned to the States a few years ago to start his own company. Jamal recognized me too. Imani. I nodded. Long time no see. He glanced at the wedding ring on my finger, then at the tired look on my face, but didn't ask about my personal life. Marcus gave me a summary. Have a seat. I handed him my phone, showing him all the screenshots of the login history, the post, and the related messages. Jamal studied them for a long time, zooming in on details, noting the access times, device type, IP address, and location recorded by the system. After a while, he asked, Have you ever given your password to anyone? No. But this account was created a long time ago. The password is a fairly easy-to-guess sequence of numbers. Related to a birthday? I shook my head. It's our wedding date. Jamal was silent for a moment. Does Damari know it? Yes. And the assistant? I'm not sure. But if Damari ever logged into the account for me or saved the password on a shared device, she could have seen it. Jamal put the phone down. The IP address only helps identify the general area and service provider. It can't prove who was actually using the device. But the login trail is still there. If you report it soon, the authorities can request more detailed technical data from the platform. I asked, Is it possible to identify who owns that specific phone? If we have the device's unique identifier or sync data, there's a high probability, but I can't just hack into someone else's phone. That's also illegal. I nodded. I don't want to do anything illegal. I just need to prove I didn't post it. Jamal looked at me. Did you record the call where she admitted it? Not the first time. Then, create an opportunity for her to say it again. I was a bit taken aback. You want me to call her? Don't call her right away. Someone who has planned a scheme like this will be on guard after being questioned. You need to make her believe you're scared and starting to consider her terms. I looked at Jamal, feeling a little hesitant. I had never thought I would have to set a trap for someone, but Amara had used my reputation and my marriage as weapons. If I continued to be naively righteous, I would be the one pushed off the cliff. Jamal took a small recording device from a drawer. This device is only for recording conversations you are directly a part of. You can't place it in a private place to eavesdrop. When you meet her, keep it in your purse, and make sure the audio is clear. I took the device, my hand slightly cold. Jamal continued, Before you meet, you should go to the police and report that your account was accessed without authorization. Having a record of the report will put you in a better position if her side actually files a lawsuit. I looked at him. You believe me? Jamal didn't answer right away. He pointed to the screenshots on the screen. I believe the data. The login device is not your phone. At the time the post was made, a camera at the market or the GPS in your car could prove you were with your mother. These things aren't enough to convict a culprit, but they're enough to show you're not lying. His words were more comforting than any platitude. Damari had said he believed me, but when I accused Amara, he demanded proof. Jamal didn't know me for years, but he looked at the data and showed me the path I needed to take. I suddenly realized that true trust isn't about saying easy things. It's about someone listening seriously, verifying, and not hastily dismissing the other person's feelings. After leaving the office, I went to the police precinct to file a report. I provided screenshots of the login history, the post, the call from the lawyer, and Amara's phone number. The officer who took my report explained that the verification process would take time, but advised me not to delete any data, not to argue online, and to save all communications. When I walked out of the precinct, I saw Damari standing across the street. He wore a gray shirt, his face weary, with dark circles under his eyes. I didn't know how long he had been waiting there. I stopped. He immediately crossed the street. "What are you doing here?" "Reporting that my account was hacked." "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him. "So you could report back to Amara?" Damari's expression changed. "I have never revealed your business to her. But she always knows what you're thinking, what you're doing, and what you're going to choose." "Imani, I had someone check the computers at the office. There's no evidence linking Amara to this. Are you investigating her, or are you trying to prove she's innocent?" Damari frowned. "Why do you always have to think the worst of me?" I laughed. "Because every time you're put between me and her, you ask me to be calm, but she just has to cry, and you immediately believe her." He took a step closer. "I don't believe her more than I believe you. I just don't want to condemn someone without proof." I looked him straight in the eye, then wait for the proof. I walked toward my car. Damari grabbed my wrist. "Come home tonight. We've been apart for almost a week." I pulled my hand away. "Do you miss me, or do you just not like that I'm no longer under your control?" His face hardened. "I really don't know what to do to make you trust me." I replied, "For starters, stop protecting the person who is threatening your wife." I got in the car and closed the door. That afternoon, I sent a message to Amara. "I want to meet. Let's be clear about the divorce terms." She replied almost instantly. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the coffee shop across from the office." I placed the recording device on the table, watching the small indicator light blink. For the first time since I left the airport, I was no longer just running from the pain. I was starting to turn back and face the person who created it. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early. The shop was directly across from the building where Damari worked. In the past, whenever he worked late, I would often sit at this very table by the window, waiting. I used to bring a book, order a hot tea, and look up every time someone walked out of the company's lobby. Back then, just seeing Damari from across the street made me feel like any wait was worth it. Today, I was here to confront the woman who wanted to push me out of my marriage. The recording device was in a small compartment of my purse. I had checked it 3 times before leaving the house. The indicator light was off, but the device was active. I chose a table directly in the line of sight of the cafe's security camera. If Amara continued to deny everything, at least I would have proof that we had met. At exactly 10 a.m., she appeared. Amara wore a white silk blouse, a dark blue skirt, and slender high heels. Her hair was tied back in a low ponytail, her makeup subtle. From a distance, she still looked like an intelligent, composed, and polite professional woman. She sat down across from me, placed her designer bag on the chair next to her, and smiled. "You're early." I looked at her. "I don't want to waste any more time." Amara ordered a coffee and leaned back in her chair. "So, have you thought it over?" I tried to keep my voice low and tired. "If I agree to the divorce, what will you do?" A small smile played on her lips. "I'll have my lawyer withdraw the request. Then I'll post a notice saying your account was hacked by a malicious third party, and that the content was not written by you. As for Damari's reputation, he's a capable man. This will blow over in time." She spoke so casually, as if the reputations of 3 people were just commodities to be traded. I pressed on. "You want me to leave the city?" "Yes." "Why?" Amara took a sip of water. "Because I don't want you to keep appearing in front of Damari. You work at the same company. Even if I leave, you can't be sure he'll choose you." Amara's eyes turned cold. "He will choose me." "What makes you so sure?" "Because I understand him better than you do." She leaned forward. "Do you know what he hates most? Coming home after a long, tiring day of work only to be met with trivial questions. Do you know what he fears most? Being held back by someone while he's trying to move forward." I clenched my hands under the table. Amara continued. "Damari needs someone who can stand by his side, not someone who only knows how to cook and wait for praise." Her words struck at the very heart of my deepest fears. I had spent 7 years building a home, and in her eyes, it was all just the work of a housekeeper. I looked at her. When did you fall in love with him? From the first day I started at the company, she answered without hesitation. He was different from other men. I'd met decisive, ambitious, knew what he wanted. It's just a pity he had a wife who couldn't understand his world. And because you love him, you hacked my account? Amara chuckled softly. I told you, I just helped you say what you were already thinking. What about the information about you and Damari staying in the same hotel? Did I think that up too? Her smile faltered for a moment. You don't need to know too much. I looked her straight in the eye. Have you two slept together? Amara was silent. She didn't answer immediately, but slowly stirred her coffee. After a moment, she said, Does that even matter? It might matter to you, but to me, who he thinks of when he's tired is more important. She smiled confidently. For 2 months in Miami, I was the one by his side every day. When he had a stomach ache, I bought him medicine. When the project ran into problems, I stayed up with him all night. When the board pressured him, the person he talked to was not you. I felt my heart constrict. Everything she described were things a wife should have known. But for those 2 months, Damari had only told me that everything was fine. I asked, Has he told you he loves you? Amara looked up. He hasn't said it. So it's all just in your head. She looked at me coldly. He hasn't said it because you're still there. I tried to feign hesitation. If I sign the papers, you're sure you'll delete all the evidence? I'll do as we agreed. And if I don't sign? Amara placed her spoon on the saucer. The metallic clink was sharp and cold. In 3 days, my lawyer will file the lawsuit. The people attacking me online will become proof that you incited a mob. By then, even if you explain that your account was hacked, who's going to believe a wife who just left home out of jealousy? I asked, Aren't you afraid the police will check the login device? Her gaze flickered slightly. Very quickly, she smiled again. You think you can convict someone based on a phone model? Thousands of people in this city use the same kind of phone. I looked at her. Then how do you know what kind of device it was? The smile on Amara's face froze. I hadn't told her what the police or the tech expert had discovered. She stared at me. You're setting me up. I didn't answer. Amara lowered her voice. Don't think you can win with these little tricks. I know a lot about Damari, about the company, and about his family. If I didn't have enough leverage, do you think he would still keep me around after what happened at the airport? Are you threatening Damari? I'm just holding on to what's mine. What is that? A document that's enough to make the Miami project collapse. Her voice was very quiet, but every word was clear. If Damari turns his back on me, not only will he lose his position, but the company could lose millions of dollars, and he'll be held responsible for leaking confidential files. I felt a chill run down my spine. Amara wasn't just using affection to hold on to Damari. She was holding a secret that could destroy his career. I asked, How did you get that document? Amara suddenly realized she had said too much. She stood up abruptly and grabbed her bag. You don't need to know. I remained seated. She leaned down, her voice cold. You have 2 days left. Don't force me to take everything from you. Amara turned and left the cafe. I waited until she was gone before reaching into my bag and turning off the recorder. My palms were slick with sweat. I immediately called Marcus and Jamal. I have the recording, my voice trembled. She admitted to forcing me to divorce and holding confidential company documents. Marcus responded instantly. Don't meet her alone again. Send me a copy and file a supplementary report today. I looked across at the office building. On the top floor, the lights in Damari's office were still on. I didn't know how long he had been threatened. I had no idea how much he had been hiding from me. But one thing had become clear. Amara didn't just want to steal my husband. She was prepared to drag all of us down with her if she didn't get what she wanted. I left the coffee shop with the recording in my purse and a heavy feeling in my heart. Amara's words made everything far more dangerous than I had imagined. She didn't just want to insert herself into my marriage. She was holding a confidential document that could get Damari fired, cost the company millions, and hold many others accountable. I drove straight to Marcus's office. Jamal was already there. Marcus listened to the entire recording twice, not interrupting, just occasionally jotting down times and key phrases. When the recording finished, the room was so quiet I could hear the air conditioner humming. Marcus took off his headphones. This is very valuable. I asked immediately, Is it enough to prove she hacked my account? Not enough to definitively conclude, because she never explicitly said, I logged into your account. But the fact that she knew the device type, the 3-day deadline, the divorce conditions, And the post's content shows she is deeply involved, Jamal added. Especially her reaction when you asked about the device. She revealed information you never provided. I looked at them. What about the confidential document? Marcus's tone turned serious. That's a bigger problem. If that document really exists, this could be illegal possession of trade secrets or extortion. You need to file a supplementary report immediately. I hesitated. Should I tell Damari first? Marcus looked at me. You still want to protect him? The question silenced me. Even though I was angry, even though my trust was shattered, Damari was still my husband. I couldn't stand by and watch his career be destroyed. But if I told him beforehand, would he rush to Amara and make all the evidence disappear? I didn't know. Marcus seemed to understand my conflict. You can tell him, but only the essentials. Don't reveal that you have the recording. Just observe his reaction first. I left the office as dusk was falling. On the way, I called Damari. He picked up instantly. Imani, where are you? I need to see you. His voice grew tense. Now? Yes, the restaurant downstairs from your office building. I'll be right down. When I arrived, Damari was already sitting in a corner booth. He looked more haggard than a few days ago, wrinkled shirt, stubble on his chin, a cold cup of coffee in front of him. I sat down across from him. He looked at me for a long time. You've lost weight. I ignored that. Was any document from the Miami project lost? Damari's expression changed dramatically. Who told you? I looked him straight in the eye. You answer first. He was silent for a few seconds, then rubbed his forehead. A file with the business valuation and negotiation strategy went missing. When? 3 days before I came back. Why didn't you report it to the company? I reported it internally. The legal and IT departments are investigating. Did Amara have access to that document? Damari didn't answer right away. She's my assistant. She had access to some files for organization. Just for organization, or could she copy them? He clasped his hands together. Imani, how do you know about this? I said slowly. Amara told me. She said she's holding a document that could bring the project down. Damari shot up. When did she tell you? This afternoon. I met with her. You did what? Why would you meet her on your own? I told you not to do anything dangerous. I looked at him. Instead of asking how she threatened me, the first thing you do is blame me. He faltered and sat back down. I'm sorry. I was just worried. Do you think she could have taken the document? Damari looked down at the table. I used to not believe it. And now? He sighed, his voice hoarse. After you told me she admitted to posting on your account, I had her access permissions reviewed. An internal account used her computer to download multiple files outside the scope of her work. My heart pounded. Why haven't you called the police? Because the company wants to handle it discreetly first. If the information leaks, the deal could collapse even if the documents aren't sold. Have you confronted Amara? Not yet. I looked at him. Or you don't dare to. Damari looked up, a pained expression on his face. I don't know how to ask her, because I'm afraid of the truth. He didn't answer. I understood. Damari had trusted Amara to be the person who understood him best at work. If she had truly betrayed him, he would not only lose an assistant but also have to admit he had given power and trust to the wrong person. He looked at me. Imani, what else do you know? I didn't mention the recording. I just replied, she loves you. She wants me to divorce you. If she doesn't get what she wants, she's willing to drag you and the whole company down with her. Damari's face turned pale. That's impossible. I let out a bitter laugh. There you go again. That's impossible. He shook his head. It's not that I don't believe you. I just don't understand why she would go to such lengths. Because you gave her hope. My words made him freeze. You never said you loved her. But you gave her priority, trust, and the feeling that she was irreplaceable. You let her step into places that should have had boundaries. Damari lowered his head. After a long moment, he said, I'm going to have her desk and computer checked tonight. I stood up. Don't let her know beforehand. Imani, he called after me. Can you come home with me? Just for tonight. I really don't want to be alone. I looked at the man before me. There was a time when hearing him say that would have made me soften instantly. But now, I didn't know if he needed me out of love or because the world he trusted was collapsing. I shook my head. You have to face the consequences of your own choices. I turned to leave. That night, around 1 a.m., Damari sent me a photo. It was of a secret drawer under Amara's desk. Inside were a hard drive, multiple copies of contracts, and a folder marked confidential. The text message below read, You were right. She took everything. I stared at the photo Damari sent for a long time. The stacks of files in the drawer, the black hard drive, the small USB drives. The red confidential stamp was clearly visible on the corner of a document. I called him back. He answered almost immediately. Where are you? In the office. Does anyone know you found this? Just the head of legal and the IT director. I haven't told Amara. I breathed a sigh of relief. Don't confront her yet. I know. Damari's voice was hoarse. Imani, I was wrong. I was silent. He continued. I thought she was just ambitious and a bit dependent on me. I never imagined she would take confidential documents, much less that she would use your account to fabricate a story. You still don't get it, do you? I asked. She didn't just suddenly become this person. You gave her too much power, too much trust, and too many opportunities to step into your life. The other end of the line went quiet. After a moment, Damari said, I've sent everything to legal. Tomorrow morning, the company will work with the authorities. As for her phone, the IT department can't check it without her consent or an official request. Don't let her know she's been discovered. I understand. I looked at the clock. It was nearly 1:30 a.m. Damari was still at the office. In his voice, I heard exhaustion, confusion, and something that sounded like collapse. He called my name. Imani. I'm here. Can you come here? I paused. What for? I don't know. I just want to see you. In the past, whenever he faced difficulties, I was always there. I would make tea, sit by his side, and tell him that no matter what happened, we would get through it together. But tonight, I didn't want to play the role of cleaning up the mess he had created. I replied, I'm not coming. You need to work with the legal team and take responsibility for your decisions. I know, his voice was barely a whisper. Before I hung up, I added, tomorrow morning, I'm giving the recording to the police. Damari was stunned. You have a recording? Yes. Amara admitted to forcing me into a divorce, threatening to sue, and holding company documents. Why didn't you tell me? Because at the time, I didn't know whose side you would protect. That statement left him silent for a long time. Finally, he just said, I understand. The next morning, Marcus took me to the authorities to submit the additional evidence. I handed over a copy of the recording, the login history screenshots, the post's content, and all the threatening messages. Damari was also there with company representatives. He wore a dark suit, his face tense. When he saw me, he took a step forward but stopped a few feet away. We didn't greet each other. The officer in charge took the files from both sides, explaining that the case involving the social media account and the internal documents needed to be verified in sequence. The company's representatives provided the data download logs from Amara's computer and the images of the hard drive and files found in her drawer. When the meeting ended, Damari followed me outside. Imani, the company is suspending Amara this afternoon to cooperate with the investigation. Does she know? Not yet. She still thinks everything is normal. I stopped. She asked to meet me this afternoon. Damari's face changed. Where? The same coffee shop. She wants a final answer. He immediately said, You can't go alone. I know. Marcus has already asked the authorities for guidance on how to handle it. I'm not going to take risks, but this could be a chance to get Amara to say more about hacking the account and the confidential documents. Damari clenched his jaw. I'll go with you. I looked at him. She won't talk if she sees you. You can sit at another table. No need. People from the company and the lawyers will be nearby. I'm still not comfortable with it. I let out a faint, bitter laugh. Now you're not comfortable? A pained look crossed Damari's face. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. At 3 p.m., I was at the coffee shop. Marcus was on the ground floor. Two members of Damari's company's legal team sat at a discreet table behind me. As agreed, Damari did not appear, though I knew he was waiting in a car across the street. Amara arrived 10 minutes late. She was still impeccably dressed, but her calm demeanor was no longer perfect. The moment she sat down, she placed a file on the table in front of me. Divorce papers. I looked at the folder. You even prepared them for me? I'm just saving you time. Amara pushed a pen towards me. Sign it, and then I'll post the retraction. I didn't take the pen. How will my account be explained? I'll say a stranger logged in. Who is the stranger? She frowned. That's not important. It is. Because the person who logged in was you. Amara's eyes turned sharp and cold. Do you have proof? I placed my phone on the table, opened the access history photo. This device matches the phone you're using. She looked at the screen and then laughed. You're basing this on just that? And the recording, I said. The smile vanished from her face. I continued. You admitted to forcing me to divorce. You also said you were holding confidential company documents. Amara looked around the cafe, seeming to notice something was off. She lowered her voice. You're trapping me. I replied calmly. No, I'm just letting you say what you've done. She shot up from her chair. You think that recording can save you? As soon as I send the documents to a competitor, Damari will lose everything. A man's voice came from behind. You don't have any more documents to send. Amara whipped around. Damari emerged from a side staircase. Following him were the head of legal and 2 plainclothes officers. Amara's face went white. Damari. Damari placed a bag containing the hard drive on the table. All the copies in your drawer have been seized. Your company account has also been locked. Amara took a step back. You searched my desk. It's company property. He looked at her, his eyes cold. Amara, you are suspended from work on suspicion of illegal possession of confidential documents, unauthorized access of another person's account, and using information for extortion. She looked at Damari in disbelief. I did all of this for you, he replied. You did it for yourself. Amara suddenly pointed at me. She forced you to do this, didn't she? She used your marriage to make you betray me. Damari looked at her for a long time. The one who betrayed my trust was you. The 2 plainclothes officers stepped forward and asked Amara to cooperate. She no longer had her weak facade. Her face was twisted in anger. Before being led out of the cafe, she turned to look at me. You think you've won? You still don't know who brought me into the company and who gave me enough money to buy that apartment. I was stunned. Damari's face also turned pale. Amara laughed. It was no longer a gentle laugh, but one full of venom. She was led away, leaving the divorce papers and the pen on the table. I looked at Damari. What apartment? He shook his head. I don't know. I didn't believe him, but the stunned look in his eyes didn't seem fake. I understood that today's confrontation was not the end. Because behind Amara, there might be someone else, someone powerful enough to bring her to Damari's side, to fund her, and to turn my marriage into a chessboard. After Amara was taken away, Damari and I remained in the coffee shop for a long time. The divorce papers on the table were a harsh reminder that just minutes before, she had believed she could control my entire life. The legal team collected the hard drive and files. Marcus came over and advised me not to continue the conversation in a public place. We left through separate exits. Damari followed me to the parking lot. Imani, we need to talk. I stopped but didn't turn around. About the apartment Amara mentioned? He stood still for a few seconds. I honestly didn't know she bought a house. An assistant who has worked for just over a year can afford an apartment that even you are surprised by. Does that sound reasonable to you? No, his voice was hoarse. I'll have someone look into it. I turned to face him. This time, don't just look for what you want to believe. Damari's face paled. I understand. I opened my car door. He suddenly caught the edge of the door but didn't touch my hand. Imani, today's events might prove that she and I are not what you think. I looked him straight in the eye. It only proves she broke the law. It doesn't erase the fact that you let her get too deep into your life. He let go of the door. I drove away. That evening, Marcus called me. He said the company had provided Amara's personnel file and discovered some irregularities. When she was hired, she didn't go through the full interview process like other candidates. Her resume was sent directly to the HR department with a recommendation from a board member. That person was Charles Washington Sr., Damari's father. I held the phone, speechless for a few seconds. Are you sure? Marcus replied. The internal documents have his approval signature. However, this doesn't prove he was involved in Amara's subsequent actions. I understood, but a sense of unease I couldn't describe crept over me. My father-in-law rarely interfered directly in our lives. He always maintained a composed demeanor, spoke measuredly, and often told Damari to cherish his family. Yet, since our wedding day, I had always felt he didn't truly value me. He had once asked why I quit my job. When I said I wanted to take care of the family so Damari could focus on his work, he just nodded and said, "A woman without her own career will sooner or later be left behind." I used to think it was a reminder. Now, I wasn't so sure. The next morning, Damari came to my parents' house. He didn't just walk in but stood outside the gate and called me. "I'm outside. If you don't want to see me, I'll leave." I looked out the window. Damari stood by his car holding a thick file. In just a few days, he had visibly lost weight. I went out and opened the gate but didn't invite him in. "What is it?" He handed me the file. I checked on the apartment. I opened it. It was a purchase agreement for a luxury condo in a high-end part of Midtown worth nearly $1.2 million. The owner's name was Amara Jones. The apartment was paid for mostly in cash, and one large wire transfer from a consulting firm named Prosperity Ventures. I asked, "Whose company is that?" Damari looked at me, his eyes heavy. "The legal representative is an old acquaintance of my father's." My heart pounded. "Have you asked your father?" "Not yet." "Why?" He looked down. "Because I'm afraid of the answer." I closed the file. "Did you ever meet Amara before she joined the company?" "Never." "Did your father ever mention her?" "No." I just remember the day HR sent her resume. My father said she was a capable person and we should give her a chance. So I listened. I read her resume and saw she was qualified. When she started, she performed exceptionally well. I looked at his face. "Over the past year, have your father and Amara ever met privately?" Damari shook his head. "I don't know." That answer exhausted me. There was so much he didn't know within his own company and family. I asked, "As for your relationship with her, how do you plan to explain it?" Damari was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "I never slept with Amara." I didn't react. He continued, "But I admit I relied on her too much. When work was stressful, she was the one I talked to. The late dinners, the business trips, the nights the whole team had to stay up. She was always there." He looked at me, his eyes turning red. I never thought of it as betrayal. And now? Now I know I gave the attention that should have been for my wife to someone else. My chest ached. That confession was more sincere than all his previous explanations, but it also made the wound clearer. "You didn't need to sleep with her to betray me," I said. "The moment your joys and sorrows were shared with her, while you came home to me in silence, there was already a third person in this marriage." Damari lowered his head. "I'm sorry. I've heard that many times." "I know." He clenched his fists. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness right away. I just want a chance to tell you the whole truth." I looked at him. "Then start with your father." That afternoon, Damari took me to his parents' house in a wealthy suburb. Before we went in, he stopped at the gate. "Whatever the answer is, I won't hide it from you anymore." I said nothing. The door opened. My father-in-law was sitting in the living room, a pot of hot tea in front of him. When he saw the file in Damari's hand, his expression shifted slightly. Damari placed the apartment contract on the table. "Dad, can you explain why your friend's company transferred over $800,000 to Amara?" The room fell silent. My father-in-law showed no surprise. He just slowly poured more tea and looked at me. "So, she finally told you?" I felt a chill run through my entire body. That sentence meant he knew everything from the beginning. I stared at my father-in-law, a cold sensation running from my spine to my fingertips. He didn't ask what Amara had said. He asked, "So, she finally told you?" This meant he not only knew about the apartment, but also knew Amara held a secret that could turn this entire family upside down. Damari shot up. "Dad, you knew about this from the start?" Mr. Charles Washington Sr. calmly lifted his teacup. "Sit down. There's no need to raise your voice." Damari didn't sit. Over $800,000 was transferred to my assistant. She stole confidential documents, threatened the company, and impersonated my wife online. "And you want me to be calm?" My father-in-law put down his cup. "I didn't know she would do all that." "But you knew who she was," Damari pressed. "Who is she?" He didn't answer immediately, but turned to look at me. His gaze was still composed, but it lacked its usual warmth. "Imani, this matter should not have involved you." I let out a bitter laugh. "She hacked my account, forced me to divorce her, and tried to take my husband. And you say this doesn't involve me?" Mr. Washington frowned. "I just wanted to find someone who could support Damari in his work." Damari clenched his fists. "By bringing a woman to be my personal assistant and giving her money to buy a house?" My father-in-law sighed. "Amara is the daughter of a man who once helped me when the company was in trouble. Her father passed away. Before he died, he asked me to take care of his wife and daughter." I asked, "Does taking care mean buying her a $1.2 million apartment?" "It wasn't a gift," he replied. "It was an investment." "An investment in what?" I looked straight at him. "A new daughter-in-law?" His face instantly turned cold. "Watch your words." Damari stepped slightly in front of me. "Dad, answer me. What was your purpose in bringing her into the company?" Mr. Washington was silent for a long moment before saying, "I thought Imani was no longer suitable for you." The words froze the entire room. I had suspected he didn't value me, but hearing him say it aloud still felt like a slap in the face. Damari turned pale. On what basis do you decide who is suitable for me? You've come too far from where you started. Your work is more complex. Your network wider. You need someone who understands the business world, who can handle crises with you, and help you expand your career. He glanced at me. Not someone who just stays at home. I felt my hands tremble, but my voice remained steady. It was your son who asked me to quit my job. He replied instantly, that was his mistake and you agreed too easily. Damari slammed his hand on the table. Enough. The teapot rattled, spilling tea onto the table. He looked at his father with an expression I had never seen before. Imani quit her job for me. She took care of our family, took care of both sets of parents, and freed me from any worries at home. What right do you have to look down on what she has done? Mr. Washington's voice remained cold. I don't look down on it, but sacrifice doesn't equal suitability. A man who wants to reach the top needs a partner on the same level. So, you chose Amara? Damari asked. I just created an opportunity for her. An opportunity to seduce my husband? I cut in. My father-in-law looked at me, his annoyance now clear. I never told her to destroy your family. But what did you tell her? He was silent. Damari stepped closer to the table. What did you promise her? The room was filled only with the ticking of the clock. After a moment, Mr. Washington spoke. I told her that if she proved her competence, I would treat her like a daughter and give her a prominent position in the company. Is that all? Damari asked. He avoided his son's gaze. I also said that if your marriage was truly no longer suitable, I wouldn't object to you starting over. I closed my eyes. All the pieces fell into place. Amara was brought into the company by the head of the family. She was given an expensive apartment. She was led to believe that my marriage was just a temporary obstacle. She didn't just become confident that Damari would choose her. Someone had given her the right to hope. I asked, did you ever tell her that Damari wouldn't abandon her? Mr. Washington faltered. Damari looked at his father. You did say that, didn't you? He sighed. She was crying that day, afraid she'd be fired for a mistake. I just comforted her, saying that if she was loyal and did her job well, this family wouldn't abandon her. You made her believe she was family, I said, while your actual daughter-in-law was never considered worthy to stand by your son's side. He didn't reply. I looked at the man who had given his blessing at our wedding, who had told us to be patient with each other. It turned out that behind all the moralizing, he had been quietly preparing my replacement. Damari turned to me. Imani, I didn't know. I looked at him. I believe you didn't know about the apartment, but you let it all happen because you also believed Amara understood you better than I did. He bowed his head. I turned to my father-in-law. Was the theft of the confidential documents at your request? He denied it immediately. No, I would never harm the company I built. So the money for the apartment came from your personal funds, and Prosperity Ventures just helped with the transfer. Marcus had warned me not to make conclusions without proof, but the explanation still had many holes. I pressed on. Did you know she was in love with Damari? He was silent for a longer time. I had my answer. He knew. He might not have directly ordered Amara to interfere in our marriage, but he saw her feelings, did not stop them, and even quietly nurtured them. Damari stepped back, his face as if he had just realized the man before him was no longer the father he trusted. Why did you have to do all this? Mr. Washington looked at his son. Because I didn't want you to repeat my mistakes. What mistakes? He didn't answer. Just then, there was a sound of something falling from the stairway. My mother-in-law stood on the steps, her face pale. She looked at Mr. Washington, her eyes filled with horror. Did you just say Amara is the daughter of the man who once helped you? My father-in-law stood up immediately. Go back to your room. My mother-in-law shook her head. No. Today, you will make it clear in front of everyone. She walked down, her hand gripping the banister. What was that man's name? Mr. Washington didn't answer. She almost screamed, was his name Leon Thomas? His expression changed completely. Damari looked between his parents, confused. Who is Leon Thomas? My mother-in-law looked at her son, tears streaming down her face. He's no stranger. He was the man your father sent to prison to save this company. The entire room fell into a deathly silence. I looked at my father-in-law. For the first time, the composure on his face vanished. And I understood that Amara had entered this family not just for love. She may have been carrying a debt that stretched back a generation. No one in the living room spoke. The name Leon Thomas was like a door that had been locked for years, just now smashed open by my mother-in-law. Damari looked at his father. You sent him to prison? Mr. Washington's hand tightened, his voice turning cold. The story from back then isn't as simple as your mother makes it out to be. My mother-in-law laughed bitterly. Not simple? Because you used his signature to cover up a debt you created? Be quiet, Mr. Washington snapped, but she didn't stop. 25 years ago, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy. You took out an off-the-books loan to save a project but didn't dare tell the board. When the loan defaulted, you pinned the blame on Leon, who was the CFO at the time. Damari turned pale. Dad, did you really do that? My father-in-law looked away. He also shared some of the responsibility. My mother-in-law took the last step down, her voice trembling but clear. Leon signed the papers because he trusted you. You said you were just borrowing his name for a few days to manage cash flow. When the investigation started, all the evidence pointed to him as the embezzler. And you stood up as a witness, claiming you were deceived by your subordinate. My throat felt dry. How long was Leon Thomas in prison? My mother-in-law looked at me. 6 years. Mr. Washington quickly added, he was granted parole and released early. She turned to her husband. Does a few years early make what you did disappear? When he got out, his family was destroyed. His wife left him, his daughter had to live with relatives. A few years later, he died of illness. I thought of Amara, a girl who grew up with her father, branded a criminal, her family broken, while the man responsible lived in a mansion and became a successful entrepreneur. If what my mother-in-law said was true, her resentment didn't start when she met Damari. It had been nurtured for almost her entire life. Damari asked his father, you knew Amara was his daughter before you brought her into the company? Mr. Washington could no longer deny it. Yes. Then why did you bring her so close to me? He looked at Damari, a weariness appearing on his face for the first time. Because I owed her family. Damari laughed in pain. You pay your debt by bringing the daughter of the man you wronged to be your son's assistant? I thought I could make it up to her by giving her a good job, a house, and a stable life. I asked, did you know she wanted revenge? No, he answered too quickly. I looked straight at him. Did you really not know, or did you not want to know? Mr. Washington was silent. My mother-in-law slowly sat down. I saw Amara here once. I turned to her. When? About 6 months ago. She came at night when Damari was on a business trip. I heard them talking in the study. Mr. Washington snapped. Don't make things up. I'm not. She looked at him with pained eyes. I heard her ask if you were going to keep your promise. She said she had made Damari trust her more and more. The only obstacle left was his wife. You didn't stop her. You just told her not to do anything too extreme. My whole body went cold. Just one phrase, don't do anything too extreme, meant he knew she was approaching Damari with impure motives. Damari stood motionless. You knew she wanted to destroy my marriage. Mr. Washington slammed his hand on the table. I didn't think she would go this far. But you allowed her to take the first steps, I said. He turned to me, his voice heavy. I just wanted you to understand one thing. Damari needs a partner in his work. I thought if you two truly still had feelings for each other, no one could come between you. I laughed. You brought a woman in love with my husband to his side every day. You gave her money, a position, and hope. Then you say if my husband and I loved each other enough, no one could come between us. He didn't answer. Damari stepped in front of his father. Is the stolen confidential document related to the old debt? Mr. Washington shook his head. I didn't ask her to do that. My mother-in-law said softly, maybe Amara didn't just want your son. Maybe she wanted to destroy the company her father went to prison to protect. The thought silenced us all. If revenge was the true goal, then her approaching Damari, fracturing our family, hacking my account, and stealing documents were just steps in a much larger plan. Damari took out his phone and called the head of legal. Check all the data Amara ever accessed, especially old files from the company's founding. Temporarily suspend the permissions of anyone connected to her. He hung up and looked at his father. From now on, you will not interfere with the investigation. Mr. Washington was furious. Are you giving me orders? Yes, Damari replied, because what you hid has put my wife in danger and brought the company to the brink of collapse. I had never seen him stand up to his father like this, but instead of feeling comforted, I just felt sad. He could be decisive when the company was threatened, but had hesitated for so long when I was the one in danger. My mother-in-law took my hand. Imani, I'm so sorry. I gently pulled my hand away. You're not the one who needs to apologize to me. I turned to Damari. I'm giving everything I just heard to Marcus. Whether what happened back then broke the law is for a professional to determine. Mr. Washington looked at me with a guarded expression. Are you trying to destroy this entire family? I replied, this family isn't destroyed because I'm speaking the truth. It was destroyed the day someone chose to bury the truth to hold on to power. I walked out of that house. Damari followed me to the gate. Imani, I will get to the bottom of everything. I stopped. Not just my father's business. You also need to sort out our business. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. I know. My phone vibrated. Marcus had sent a message with a new data file provided by the investigators. On Amara's hard drive was a folder named Returning Everything. Inside were hundreds of documents, images, and a video recorded in my father-in-law's study. Marcus's last message made my breath catch. In the video, Mr. Washington promised that if Amara helped Damari gain control of the company, he would let her take your place as his wife. I sat in my car outside my in-laws' house and played the video Marcus had sent. The image was shaky, the angle low, as if recorded by a phone in a purse. The study was dimly lit, but the faces of Mr. Charles Washington, Sr. and Amara were clear. Amara's voice came first. You said you would give me a real place in this family. I've done everything you asked, but Damari still won't leave his wife. Mr. Washington replied in a cold tone. I told you to support him in his work, to help him gain control of the company. I never told you to destroy his family. Amara laughed. If Imani is still there, Damari will never fully trust me. He was silent for a moment, then said, If you can truly prove you are more suitable, I will not object to you becoming his actual wife. But don't do anything that harms the company. The video ended there. I held the phone, my whole body frozen. Mr. Washington didn't directly order Amara to steal my husband, but his promise had turned her ambition into a seemingly legitimate goal. He gave her money, a job, and access to Damari. In the end, he even promised to accept her if I was removed from the marriage. Damari stood outside the car, tapping lightly on the window. I unlocked the door, and he got into the passenger seat. I handed him the phone without a word. Damari watched the video once, then a second time. By the end, his hand was visibly shaking. I didn't know, he said. I looked straight ahead. I believe you didn't know about this video. Damari turned to me. But you don't believe I'm blameless. He lowered his head. I understand. If I had kept my distance from the beginning, she would never have believed she had a chance. He said softly, Yes, if I had listened to you at the airport, things might not have gone this far. Yes, if I hadn't given her access to almost all of my work, she couldn't have stolen the confidential documents. He closed his eyes. Yes. I turned to look at him. So what are you going to do? Damari was silent for a long time. I will provide this video to the investigators. I will also ask my father to step down from all executive positions in the company until the old and current matters are fully clarified. Can you do that to your own father? He looked towards the house. If I continue to cover for him, I will become just like him. I said nothing. After a moment, he asked, And what about us? I looked at the wedding ring on my finger. Since the day I left our condo, I still hadn't taken it off. I used to think keeping the ring meant I still wanted to save the marriage. But now I understood that sometimes you hold on to something only because you don't have the courage to admit it has lost its meaning. I can't answer that yet, I said. Damari nodded. I'll wait. Don't wait for me like someone who will eventually come back. I took the ring off my finger and placed it in his palm. Wait until you truly understand what you've lost. Damari looked at the ring, his eyes turning red. I don't want to take it. You haven't said you're divorcing me. I closed his fingers over the ring. But from today, I don't want to wear a promise that only I am keeping. He bowed his head, his hand clenched tightly. For the first time, I saw Damari cry. Not a loud sob, just a single tear that fell onto the back of his hand holding the ring. I'm sorry. I opened the car door. An apology can't fix 7 years, but it can be the first step for you to stop living the way you were. I went back to my parents' house. That evening, Damari sent the entire video to the legal department and the investigators. He held an emergency board meeting, publicly disclosing his father's involvement in Amara's hiring and financial support. Mr. Washington was suspended from his executive duties. The company also launched a review of old files related to Leon Thomas's case. My mother-in-law left the mansion and moved in with her sister. She called me, saying that after decades of silence, she no longer wanted to use the family name to cover up wrongdoing. 3 days later, the investigation confirmed that Amara's phone had been used to access my social media account. The device also contained drafts of the post, screenshots, and messages with people hired to promote the post in various groups. She could no longer deny it. Amara admitted to creating the post to force me into a divorce, but insisted that her main goal was revenge against the company. She said she wanted Mr. Washington to lose his reputation, Damari to lose his career, and their family to fall apart, just as her father had experienced. When I heard her testimony, I felt no satisfaction, only sadness. Amara was a child who had suffered the consequences of adult sins, but instead of ending the cycle of pain, she chose to drag innocent people into her revenge. A week later, the post on my account was completely removed. The company issued a statement confirming that the content about the illicit relationship and asset transfer was unverified and apologized for the impact on me. I also posted a short explanation. I didn't go into family details, only stating that my account had been compromised, the matter was being handled by the law, and I hoped everyone would stop attacking any individuals. I didn't want to turn Amara into the target of a new wave of cyberbullying. Her mistakes had to be judged by the law, not by insults from strangers. After that, I went back to the condo I shared with Damari to get the rest of my things. The house was exactly as I had left it. The broken vase had been cleaned up, but a long scratch remained on the cabinet. Damari stood in the middle of the living room. He had taken a temporary leave from work to cooperate with the investigation and manage the crisis. On the table was a folder. He pushed it towards me. It was a property settlement agreement. This condo and most of the savings will be yours if you decide to divorce. I looked at him. Are you trying to buy forgiveness? No, he shook his head. I'm just giving you back what you rightfully deserve. For the past 7 years, you gave up your career to take care of our family. What I've achieved is not just my own effort. It was the first time Damari had truly acknowledged the value of my years of sacrifice. But I didn't sign it immediately. I looked at the home that was once my whole world and said, I need time. He nodded. I won't rush you anymore. I pulled my suitcase and walked out the door. Damari didn't stop me. Before I left, he said from behind, whatever the final outcome is, I will take responsibility and learn to be a better person. Not to keep you, but because I don't want to continue being the person who hurt you. I didn't turn back, but for the first time, I believed he was starting to understand. The battle with Amara was almost over. The old case of Leon Thomas was being reviewed. All that was left was the final decision about my marriage. And this time, I wouldn't decide out of fear of loneliness, family pressure, or pity for anyone. I would decide for myself. Epilogue. 3 months after I took off my wedding ring, my life had changed in ways I never imagined. Amara's case was handled according to the law. She faced consequences for unauthorized access of a social media account, spreading false information, extortion, and illegal possession of corporate trade secrets. The files on her hard drive helped authorities clarify the years-long revenge plot she had orchestrated. She hadn't just wanted to destroy my marriage. She wanted Damari to lose both his family and his career, and for Mr. Washington to watch the company he built crumble. I understood the pain she had endured was real. Her father had suffered from the mistakes of a past generation. Her childhood was shadowed by poverty, gossip, and resentment. But pain cannot be a license to hurt innocent people. When one uses the injustice they suffered as an excuse to create new injustice, the cycle of suffering never ends. The case of Leon Thomas was also reviewed. Old records, witness testimonies, and new evidence showed that my father-in-law had concealed many important details during the original investigation. Mr. Washington had to step down from all management positions and face his own responsibilities. The family company lost many contracts but did not collapse as Amara had hoped. Damari voluntarily resigned as CEO. He said he had to take responsibility for his lax management, for giving too much power to one person without checks and balances, and for letting personal relationships affect his work. He moved into a small apartment near the office. The home that was once our sanctuary was left empty. He didn't sell it or pressure me to return. During those 3 months, Damari only messaged me a few times. He didn't ask when I would forgive him, didn't use our parents to apply pressure, didn't send flowers, gifts, or grand promises. He just regularly updated me on the progress of asset-related issues and sent necessary documents. Once, he texted that he had started seeing a therapist. He wanted to understand why he always took the sacrifices of those closest to him for granted. I read the message but didn't reply. I no longer wanted to be the prize for his change. If he truly wanted to be better, he had to do it for himself. As for me, I started rebuilding my life. I enrolled in a management accounting course, updating the knowledge I had neglected for years. Through Nia's recommendation, I started doing financial reporting for a small business. The day I received my first paycheck in 7 years, I sat in my car for a long time. The amount wasn't large compared to what Damari used to make, but it moved me more than any expensive gift. It was money I had earned myself, proof that I could stand on my own 2 feet without hiding behind the title of a successful man's wife. I also spent more time with my parents. Every afternoon, I helped my dad in the garden. On weekends, I took my mom to the market and cooked with her. I realized that family isn't a place that forces you to endure in order to maintain a perfect image. Family should be a place where you are heard, respected, and can return to when you are weary. On the day we finalized the property division, Damari asked to meet me at the park by the river. It was the same place I had sat alone on the night I left the airport. He was there before me. He was thinner, but his eyes were calm. He wasn't wearing a suit, just a simple shirt and dark pants. We sat on the bench, watching the water flow quietly by. After a long silence, he spoke. "I've signed all the papers. The condo and the assets we agreed upon are yours." I nodded. "Thank you." He looked down at his hands. "Imani, I want to ask you one last time. Do you still want to save this marriage?" I didn't answer right away. I had thought about that question for 3 months. I had missed him. I had wanted to go back to our familiar kitchen, cook a meal, and pretend we had just had a big fight. But every time I thought about it, I remembered the feeling of standing at the airport, watching my husband of 7 years hold another woman without thinking his wife needed an explanation. The deepest wound wasn't inflicted by Amara. It came from living for so long in a marriage where my presence was taken for granted. I looked at Damari. "I believe you've changed." His eyes lit up, but I continued. "But I can't go back just because you've become a better person after losing me." The hope in his eyes slowly faded. He asked softly, "You've made your decision?" I nodded. "We're getting a divorce." Damari bowed his head for a long time. When he looked up, his eyes were red, but he didn't try to hold on. "I respect your decision." I took the wedding ring out of my purse and placed it in his hand. "It's not because I'm denying the past 7 years. We truly loved each other, and we had happy times. But love from the past can't force someone to live forever in pain." Damari held the ring. "I'm sorry I understood that too late." I smiled. Better late than never. We left the park, walking in different directions. I didn't look back, not out of hatred, but because I knew the road ahead was my own. Through it all, I understood that love cannot exist without respect and boundaries. Betrayal doesn't just start with the physical. It begins when a person gives their attention, trust, and priority to someone else. Patience doesn't always save a family. Sometimes it just teaches others they can hurt you without consequence. When faced with a crisis, calmness, evidence, and legal knowledge are always more valuable than actions driven by anger. Most importantly, everyone needs to maintain their independence, self-respect, and the ability to protect themselves, even in a marriage that seems perfectly happy.